This is Anthony Metivier. You're listening to the Magnetic Memory Method podcast from magneticmemorymethod.com. And in today's episode, 5 memory improvement exercises that don't require another annoying app. Because it's really annoying, isn't it? Your smartphone is supposed to be smart, but every time that you rack on one new thing inside of it, it gets less smart because it's one more thing that you wind up either ignoring, or it has all these push notifications that just get in the way of your productivity. And we were talking about this a couple weeks ago with the episode on digital amnesia. So if you haven't heard that episode, I think you'll really benefit from it. And that's going to give you some insights on how to combat some of these problems. But you can do memory improvement exercises without any apps. You don't need them. Although there is something interesting coming out in the works, maybe, sort of. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but just imagine. I'll tell you about it later. It's pretty exciting, though. In any case, that's what we're going to talk about in this episode. 5 memory improvement exercises that don't require another annoying app. But before that, I want to let you know that there's a new thing for the time being, which is the Ultimate Memory Improvement Secret. If you haven't already rushed to get it, please do so. Just go to magneticmemorymethod.com/secret. It's got some very powerful exercises for you to complete that will help assure that you're using memory techniques. Now, it's a little bit less about the memory techniques themselves because you can get all that on the main site with the video course. But this is answering the question, why is it that some people get results from memory techniques and others just read the book and put it aside and never do anything? Or they take the course and they go, I get it, I understand, but they never do anything. Why is it that happens? Well, it's because they don't have the Ultimate Memory Improvement Secret. So, for free, I created an audiobook just for you as a listener to the Magnetic Memory Method podcast. It's not available anywhere else, and no one else hears about it except for a few friends here and there, about this very, very special audiobook just for you called the Ultimate Memory Improvement Secret. Now, that is probably going to evolve into a book that won't be free and a video course that will be at a premium price. So if you want to grab this audiobook, it is just for you for listening to this podcast. And if it happens to have disappeared by the time that you get to that link, then I'm sure there'll be something else for you to download at magneticmemorymethod.com/secret. But grab it while the getting is hot. You're going to love it. And I've been getting so many homework assignments. I'm so happy about it. And I'm glad that I didn't make the promise to answer everybody with their homework assignments. But just following through, just taking those actions is what it takes. And the comments and the praise from people who are going through it has been amazing, and I'm going to do my best to respond to everybody, but we're talking about hundreds of responses and hundreds of homework assignments, and that is great because that's taking action, and you learn by doing. That's the ultimate challenge as a teacher with memory techniques, is that if people don't do, they really don't learn. You really don't learn these techniques. You can think about them all that you want. You can understand them all that you want and go, I get it. I know why it works. It makes all kinds of sense. But you really don't learn the territory until that you're in the territory. And the map is never the territory. And then you end up making your own map. And that map is so powerful. So if you have known about memory techniques and just haven't gotten yourself to the point where you're actually making them part of your life, then the Memory Improvement Secret, the Ultimate Memory Improvement Secret, is for you, and it's for the getting right now at magneticmemorymethod.com/secret. Now, before we get rolling with these 5 memory improvement exercises, I also want to thank all the people who have emailed welcoming me to Australia. I'm still in Beijing as I'm recording now, but it's just a few days away before April and I arrive in our new environment for at least a couple of years, and I'm super excited, and just the outpouring of support has been amazing, and I think that this is going to be incredible. It's a long time since I lived in a country that speaks English, so that's kind of exciting because, I'm quite good in German, but it's not the same, especially when it comes to setting up neat events for the people and doing things on a regular basis in a community I don't know. I mean, I just think it's going to be just a very, very different way of life, and I'm looking forward to that a great deal. Now, of course, I'm going to spend lots of time in my own memory palace, but I've already been poking around at the architecture and reading about all the biggest buildings in Brisbane, and I'm going to be taking a memory palace tour, and that's like one thing that could be kind of fun, is do regular memory palace tours and just get out in the field and make some memory palaces. I think that is going to be great, and I'm sure that we can make it happen. So if you're listening and you're in Australia and you think that'd be fun, let me know. And people are already letting me know, so that's great. But I always love hearing from people, and it's just so much fun. Now, I got a really interesting review. People asked me to read more reviews on the podcast, and so here we go. There's one that is on the podcast I get on iTunes, and it says indispensable for a life of learning. It's from B.R. Kant, and he says, I am currently a grad student working on 2 master's degrees. I say that so you're aware of the amount of learning and memorization on my plate. This podcast has opened my eyes and mind to the world of memory. Not only has it helped me as a learner, but also as a youth pastor, mental health counselor, and all-around human being. I wholeheartedly recommend this podcast. Well, B.R. Kant, thank you very much for those kind words. It's amazing how that when we think about memory techniques, we often just think about like the one way that they could help us, but it's comprehensive. And one of the things I want to get across to you in this episode of the Magnetic Memory Method podcast is that it's about brain health as well. It's not just about improving your memory. It's also about the health of your brain and the quality of your life, your happiness. So get in there and use these techniques if you're not already. It's just so incredible how it makes you feel. It makes you feel better. Wouldn't you want to feel better if you could, just by learning at a higher level? Because learning itself also makes you feel better. I can't imagine any resistance to jumping into a game like this, especially when you have the kinds of memory improvement exercises that you can do after listening to this episode, and do it without having to put another app on your phone to deal with. So that's going to be a lot of fun for you, and I hope you take these exercises in earnest. But we got one more thing to do, because I'm going to reach into, I don't do this that often, but I'm going to do it today, reach into the Magnetic Memory Method mailbag and answer a very interesting question. And this comes from someone who is anonymous, and, please put your name on things. We have lost so much sincerity and earnestness in the world, where people are using fake names or no names at all. I always answer my emails with, hello, and at the end, sincerely, and put my name. And, I'm not trying to get on a soapbox here or preach or anything like that, but these little niceties, we're missing them so much, and they're just so human. And, you could make the counter argument that actually, no, they're formalities and thin, and there's something much more authentic about just like, boom, no name, no thanks, no hello, or anything like that. But in any case, this email isn't exactly like that, but it's hard for me to answer people when they don't leave their name, because I like to say, dear so-and-so, or hello, or hi, and then the name. I love that. I love to be able to do that, and I'm just like already got so much email, and I'm less likely to answer people who have bizarre email addresses like gargasnark@jergadonk.com, and then they don't even have a name. It's just, we want personal stuff in the 21st century, not less. That's why I'm so kind of leery about apps, even though there is an interesting thing coming that I am going to talk about at a different time. I thought I was going to talk about it today, but I decided I ain't going to talk about it today. I'm going to save it for another time when it's scripted or something like that. But there's something real strange but bursting with possibility in the app world, and I'm loosening a little bit on the topic, getting my dogma in order so that I'm not so dogmatic, and trying things that I'm resistant to, because that's one of the biggest things you can do to improve your life is look at what you're resistant to, think about why you're making such a big enemy out of that thing, and then dance with it a little bit. There's a lot to be learned in the waltz. And so I listen to my self-talk, and I'm just like, I'm against the apps. Well, maybe there's something I'm missing. So I'm starting to play some video games now, because even though I think it's a waste of time and it's boring, what is going on in this video game world? What am I not learning by just casting it aside? Right? So I'm learning a lot, actually. And April's a little bit disappointed. She always said to me that oh, it's so great. I hate these boys that are just lost in games. And I'm like, I hate games. I never play games. And then lo and behold, she can see in my eye protecting glasses that there's games being played. And I'm just like, don't worry, it's research. I'm not going to get into gaming, but I got to understand this better, and I'm learning. And there's ways to turn games into memory palaces. So it is research, but I'm still not a fan of it, but I'm learning by doing it. And that's really, really important. And there's some memory training apps as well. Like, I get contacted all the time. Please check out my memory training app. Please check out my memory training app, and so forth. And these people just come out of the blue, and, it all looks interesting and so forth. But if you're a guy or a girl out there developing things and you want support in the future, start that relationship way earlier. Don't just come out of the blue and expect a rapid response from influencers out on the internet. You want to have been their supporter for a long time before you start asking them to support you, especially if you haven't done your research and you don't know that they're just like kind of like anti-app or anti-whatever, because then you got an extra hill you got to climb to win them over. And I say that in all charity, that if you're one of those people, the game isn't lost. You could still win me over, but it's just kind of weird. I think it's really weird to get overwhelmed by all these emails on a weekly basis. Hey, check out my stuff, check out my stuff, check out my stuff. Who are you? Like, we've never had any communication before. You never left a comment on magneticmemorymethod.com. You've never been in touch before to say anything. And now you want me to delve into something that I am notoriously well known for not being in support of. Although that is changing. Just not on this episode of the Magnetic Memory Method podcast. In any case, mailbag. And this has everything to do with not using apps. The question says, it actually begins with, hello. Hi, Anthony. I feel great that experts like you are using the internet to help the common masses like me. My question to you is, so this starts off with some praise to build up my ego and so forth. That will make you more willing to answer. Trust me, that kind of stuff, it does work. But I would love also to hear a little bit more about the stories from people and so forth when they ask questions. But from there, he just jumps into question. My question to you is, when you memorize words, how many images do you place on one loci so that you can memorize about 110 words in 5 minutes? Then the second part, do you connect the words you picture in one loci and carry on the connection with the second? And for example, ride, banana, jingle, coconut. And do you take the connection to your second loci? Okay, so I get the question here. How do you picture words? This is the third part, like horrific, horrendous, which literally do not have any picture. Please guide me with your knowledge so I can learn something from you. Thanking you. And then no name. So really interesting questions, and they're really powerful ones. And I don't want to critique the questioner, but a reason why that you're doing this is always really important, because why would you memorize ride, banana, jingle, and coconut? Why would you need to memorize 110 words in 5 minutes? Is this a competitor? If it's a competitor, well, the answer is to practice and experiment. But if it's for learning a language, then you don't want to use competitive memory tools. You want to use language learning tools. And for that, I highly recommend diving into a book-length treatise on the topic. And to this day, I think the only book-length treatises on memorizing foreign language vocabulary have been written by yours and yours truly. But in any case, when you memorize words, how many words you want to put on one station, magnetic station? He's using the word loci or loci here. But how many words has to do with your level of skill. So start with one. If you can do one consistently on each station and recall them back with a high level of accuracy, then experiment with adding not 2 words or 7 words or anything like that, but an entire sentence, so that you can really go for gold. And the reason why I would suggest making that leap is because if you can do 10 words in one memory palace with 1 word per station, right, then you can do entire phrases. That's just as clear to me as a bell. And I've seen it happen again and again and again and again. You can make quantum leaps once that you've established the basics. In terms of connecting the stations together, that's on a case-by-case basis. You don't necessarily need to do it, but if you know the magnetic memory method, then you know there's something called a bridging figure that can do the work of connecting the stations together if you need it, and it can break that need if you don't need it. And so it's always a case-to-case basis. This is why magnetic memory method is a method. It's not a system. There's no systematicity to your memory. Now, in competition, there's a high threshold need for as much systematicity as possible. You need to be reliant on systems to get that speed. But notice that is not for long-term retention. That's not for keeping useless information in your mind forever. The techniques you need for long-term knowledge building and fluency building and language learning, and for memorizing formulas that you're going to use again and again, as opposed to long strings of digits in a competition setting that you're going to forget later. These are different approaches, different techniques. They're related, they're cousins, but they're not the same. So you really want to think about the purpose, and that's why I wish people would give reasons why in their questions, because it helps me be much more targeted in the answer. And then with the question of how do you picture words like horrific and horrendous that don't have any picture, well, they do have pictures. I mean, for example, horrific has whore in it. And if you can picture a whore, then you can start to work with horrendous, horrific, and all the other words that may be related to that. All words have pictures. And if you listen to last week's episode of the podcast, then you know about logogens. And so if I know that's a technical word, but it comes from memory science and the science of language and linguistics and so on and so forth. But studying a little bit of these things gives you tools. So learn about logogens. It's on last week's episode of the show. You're going to love it. Very, very powerful tool. And so never say that words don't have pictures. All words have pictures. All of them. Every single one. Even the word itself is always already a picture. So when I'm looking at horrific and horrendous, I see 2 R's. That's already a picture. When I look at horrendous, I see a dos, right? D-O-U-S. That's a picture. It's different than horren. So I can split it. There's all kinds of visual things going on. Sometimes there's capitalization. I mean, you can look at the white space around words. You need to understand that everything already is a picture in multiple ways at the same time. And again, last week's episode is going to give you a real boost about thinking about words. It's all about words and how to think about them. And so if you haven't heard last week's episode, please do. And so I hope that answers the question, or the 3 questions. There really is no substitute for getting in there and doing these exercises, having a purpose, having a distinct reason why that you're doing what you're doing, and then practicing and just going in there. So it sounds like there's a competition element behind this question, but that's not really my specialty or interest. But I still think these tips will help. And in terms of creating multiple words on a single station so that you could do 110 words in 5 minutes, then you just need to make a calculation and figure out how many words you need on a single station to memorize in that period of time and how many you would have to do per station per second. And that's just a calculation. And then you train yourself to beat the mark. And it's as simple as that. So I hope this helps, and get in there and do it. And, I'm going to be talking soon about some software that I'm actually enjoying a great deal that will give some speed practice to that, because it has a timer on it, and the countdown really helps you develop a skill set for using the tools of mnemonics within very short periods of time, so that you can do that amount of words within that amount of time, if that's the time that you choose. But I do see these as slightly different skill sets for short-term recall in a competition setting versus long-term knowledge building, fluency building, and general just long-term memorization, which is quite different than what you go for when you're competing. How do you like the magnetic memory method mailbag? Let me know, and maybe we can continue, because I've got so many questions that it's hard to keep up with them all. But I like answering questions. It's fun, and I want it to be useful to you. So let me know what you think, and we will keep on rocking and rolling with questions, either when the fancy tickles me or when demand takes over and forces me to answer all the questions in the world about memory. But remember, the value of your questions is directly indexed to the amount of effort that you put into answering it yourself, so that your question actually has more reach to it, more specificity. And again, give me your reasons why, and if you can, sign your name. That would be delightful. Now, let's get on with these memory improvement exercises that I wanted to talk to you about today. And again, it's not just about improving your memory, it's about a higher level of fitness for your mind, for your physical brain itself. And the truth is that the science, at least the science that I've been looking at and reading, it just doesn't stand in favor of apps exercising your memory. In fact, it's far from it. There's even companies that, well, one in particular, that has been punished for claims made about the memory improvement that an app can make possible. And I'm speaking about Luminosity, and you can look up the FTC regulations on this and the news that they put out there about a $2 million settlement that was charged against this company for claims they were making. So until things change, deeply consider not wasting time on memory improvement apps. Again, I've discovered one that I think is worth your time. We'll be talking about it later after things are settled, after the move, and I'm really excited about it because of the implications that it has. But for now, even if you take that app that I'll be talking about into your life, you never need apps like that in order to complete the best memory improvement exercises in the world. So let's dive into my top 5 favorite memory improvement exercises and do them. You're going to love them. The first is the Gary Small memory improvement exercise, or the 4 details exercise. It's been a while since I interviewed Dr. Gary Small, who is the author of 2 Weeks to a Younger Brain. Absolutely fantastic book. Worth every penny. Add it to your memory improvement library. Read it ASAP. Get this stuff into your life, because it's going to amaze you how much better you'll feel, and you will feel a strengthening in your memory, and you get a clarity boost as well. And the best thing too is that it helps you to pay attention to people in the world. And all you have to do to complete this exercise is to pay attention to 4 little details about people that you see. Just pick one person to begin with, and then later in the day, recall that person and the 4 details that you noticed about them. So for example, the other day, I was on the way to the gym here in Beijing. There's a nice gym around the corner from where we're staying. He had a red scarf, black jacket. He had his key in his hand, and he was wearing scuffed brown shoes. And so here's what's important, though, is I just noticed those details, but I didn't try to memorize them. I didn't use any kind of memory techniques or anything like that. I just noticed them, asked my brain to pay attention, and then on the way home from the gym, and then once again later in the day, I recalled those 4 details. And it's just a simple little exercise, but it's better than all the memory improvement vitamins in the world, and it feels so good. It's better than supplements for getting you a boost in recall ability and being alive in the world. And, not a single one of all the memory improvement games that I have played creates nearly as much pleasure as going through the day and thinking about people that I've paid attention to and just recalling those details. I guess it sounds kind of weird, but it really isn't, And you don't have to stop with just one person. You can do this exercise all day long and really stretch yourself and enhance your experience of being in the world. So when I got to the gym, I made it a point to notice 4 things about the woman at the desk who took my card and gave me my wristband. I noticed the grooming of her eyebrows and the colors of her sweater, the jogging pants, and her shoes, and that made me so much more present. And this is something we need to be practicing. We don't have to be Sherlock Holmes here, but we know that meditation is so good for our brains. And this exercise, it's not really a form of meditation, but it relates to the practice because you're keeping yourself aware of your surroundings. And so instead of being lost in thought, you're actively paying attention to the world and the things you encounter in the world. And then you're holding this thread to the world to later in the day when you're going to recall those details. So it's really powerful. It's a great memory improvement exercise. It's a great brain fitness exercise. And Gary Small gives lots of reasons and citations about why it works so well and all the science behind it. So read Gary Small's stuff. He's great. And if you want to listen to my interview with him on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast, then just pop his name and Magnetic Memory Method into your browser. And lo and behold, that sucker will pop up and it'll be in your ears before you know it. And you're going to love it. Okay, so fourth exercise. Well, we're going in reverse order here. So last one was number 5, now number 4. Memorize information from books, but not just any information. Memorize information that matters, information that enhances the experience of reading or even helps you make the world a better place. So a lot of us are sloppy readers, or at least, I am. I don't know, because I just, character names are repeated so often, I just sometimes never memorized to bother them. But I have, over the past years, just made a point of focusing my attention on the names of characters and memorizing them the first time I encounter them. And it has completely changed how that I read novels and made them much more pleasurable for me. So last week's episode, we were talking about this, and just to go over it a little bit again, just think, what would it do if you made it your practice to actively remember names of characters as you're reading? And get this, let's do a little mix and match here. You use the Gary Small memory improvement game, the 4 details game, right? So even if the author doesn't give you visual details for you to practice remembering, you can just make them up. And I do this all the time when I'm reading novels. So there's this novel I mentioned last week called Blank by Matt Eaton. And the character's last name is Luckman, and as I was reading further, I realized he had a first name, which is Stone Luckman, and so, instantly memorizable name, and really great. Congrats to the author for building such an amazing mnemonic into this character's name. In case you're not a native English speaker, Stone Luckman, literally creates the image of stones being thrown at this guy who's supposedly lucky, right? And so that's really great. But I add details that aren't necessarily in the book. So I see him as bald, he has this scar on his cheek, he's always got a vest on, and knee-high military boots. Now that might be disrespectful to the author and whatever details he has, but as Stephen King points out in On Writing, which is a book I highly recommend, he tends to scrimp on physical details. This is Stephen King. He doesn't, or at least as he talks about in On Writing, it's not necessarily the case in practice in the books I've read of his, but he says in On Writing that he knows that readers go ahead and paint their own pictures of the characters anyway, so why should he bother, going into great detail when there's just going to be ignored or overwritten by the readers, right? But the question is, whether there are details or not, do the readers remember those details? So you can use this exercise to memorize the names of characters, give them 4 characteristics, and then give yourself a simple test to recall those details later. Now, if you really want to go gung-ho, before you read a book, go through and go to the end of every chapter and say, remember 4 details. Remember 4 details. If the chapter's got 40 books, put remember 4 details at the end of every chapter. Write it out 40 times. And then when you're reading, you get to the end of the chapter, what were the 4 details of the character in that chapter? This is a great exercise for your brain. You could buy a stamp that says remember 4 details and just go through all your books and just be like, boom, boom, boom. And, you might not get all 4 every time, but you will get enough. And the practice itself is good for you, and you'll get better over time, and you can track that. And this doesn't have to do with fiction only, right? So, for example, I just finished reading this great book called No Limit, The Rise and Fall of Bob Stupak and Las Vegas's Stratosphere. It's by a guy named John L. Smith. Really wonderful book. And, it's one of those books you see it and you're like, yeah, I've seen that building on documentaries and on TV and so forth and movies. But there's a story to that building. And of course, I love buildings, memory palaces, right? Memory palaces. So I like to read a lot of books about buildings. And wow, what a great story about how this guy built these casinos and some of the adventures that he had and so forth. Well, there's major lists of names, well, not lists of names, but name after name after name of people mentioned in this book. And so I just pick one that sounds interesting. I get my mind to memorize it, and then I just add little details about them, or I'll look up pictures pictures while I'm reading on Wikipedia or whatever. I have to use Yahoo here in China because Google doesn't work, and I'll look at the pictures and I'll just go, okay, so white shirt, blue tie, whatever they're wearing, and glasses, and going bald, and just recall it at the end of the chapter, the name and some details of that new person that I've met. And it's just incredible what happens. And it's just a memory exercise that can't be beat. You improve your imagination as you're improving your knowledge of the world by reading and adding simple features to your memory too. And, you can make it more concrete as well. Like, you don't have to just remember these abstract details about the person. You could memorize important details about them that are non-visual in nature. But whatever, just get into these exercises, make them your own, and figure out what criteria is important to you for a good, solid memory exercise, and never go through a book without turning it into a memory improvement fountain of exercises for yourself. And if you want to take it to the next level, also look at how to memorize a textbook. There's an infographic there, a full podcast episode about memorizing a textbook. You'll love it. And that's a little bit more intense. But it's actually called How to Realistically Memorize a Textbook. And it's a very, very important skill. All right, exercise number 3. We've done 5, we've done 4, and now it's time for 3. Create more than one memory palace on a single day. Now, if you've been following the magnetic memory method for any length of time now, you know the phrase that 1 is the most dangerous number in memory improvement. People don't want just one book. They just want one memory technique. They want just one memory improvement guru. They want just one memory palace. Well, maybe they want more than one memory improvement guru, but some people just seem to stick with their guy. They find it and they stick. But the truth is that some people can get away with that. But just because memory competition history holds some legendary tales about people who scanned through a single memory improvement book and then went on to win the World Memory Championship, for example, in a very short period of time after getting into these techniques, those cases are actually pretty rare. And the truth is that 1 is never enough, even for them. And then, of course, instantly by getting into the competition world, they're talking about the techniques with other people. So they never get 1 anyway, right? Nobody has just 1, except for those who actively and stubbornly just say, I only want the one book that solves all my problems and improves my memory. But when it comes to the power and the glory of what these techniques can do for you, this is a way of life. And so you read beyond just your first touch, and you do more than just the exercises presented by just one dude. You get in there and you really, really, really entrust yourself with what it is that you want, which is power and transformation and mastery. And that's going to come from a number of teachers, not just one, a number of sources, not just one. And it's the same thing with memory palaces. You're not going to learn how to make a memory palace by making just one. If you've only created and used one memory palace, that's kind of like enjoying pizza just one time at just one restaurant. Sure, you've had pizza, but do you really know what pizza is all about? I don't think so. The reality is that the full experience of pizza is always yet to come. You can never complete the description of pizza. Now, I know that's a bit philosophical and so forth, but think about it, It's like a lot of things in life. You can always learn more about what defines a truly great pizza by eating another one. Now, pizza is a really bad example, by the way, but like the memory palace, it has strong originary ties with ancient Greece. And even then, that's still not the beginning of the story, but, eat pizza at your own risk. And you might want to look into memory foods that improve your memory instead, because there's a lot of junk in pizza that actually creates brain fog. But in any case, that's the example that came to mind. But creating memory palaces is really simple to do. And, you want to sit down and make more than one. And if you can make more than one at one go, all the better, because you'll be learning. And I keep learning about how to make memory palaces better all the time. Every memory palace I make, I learn something. Every memory palace that one of you sends me, I learn something. I get them every day. I love looking at them. They're so amazing. One of these days, I'm really into art and stuff like that. I would just love to print them out and have a gallery exhibition. We'd have to have like a big gallery because there's so many of them that I've received. But it would be amazing. It would be so amazing, and I'd be like the ringleader more than the artist. I don't know how you would frame that. I guess Banksy, I could hire him for an hour of consulting about how to do that, because a lot of his art I think is quote unquote outsourced. But wouldn't that be cool? A memory palace exhibition, and just all these wonderful memory palaces from different people following the same set of principles in ways that are very, very effective. I mean, it's just gloriful. Is that a word? Anyway, I can't wait for the the Memory Palace exhibition yet to come, because everything that we need to know is never complete. We need to keep on learning. We need to always be adding to our knowledge, and you can always learn more about how to create awesome, amazing memory palaces by always creating another one. And so this is one thing that just makes me so excited about moving to yet another city while I'm in Beijing. I mean, Beijing is just, so many memory palaces left, right, and center. It's great. And I've gathered a lot while I'm here. Beautiful, beautiful place. 4 memory palaces, but all places are beautiful. You can't even go to the bank without getting a new memory palace, which I don't know if you saw that video on YouTube about when we made dumplings together with some Chinese people in Berlin, and it's kind of sad video about leaving Berlin and a little bit of conflict there in the bank machine area. But even though there was conflict there, I was making it a new memory palace. It's still humming along to this day. Really, really fun. All right, exercise number 2 in our countdown: use a memory palace every day. Hey, you knew this one was coming, right? Well, of course. I mean, you can't just go around creating memory palaces. There's a huge difference between the art of creating memory palaces and the benefits that you get from creating memory palaces, and then actually using them. So there are 2 different kinds of memory exercise going on, and it's just great memory activity to actually use memory palaces, and you can benefit from making them without using them, but that would be kind of sad. That's kind of like, making dinner for a bunch of people and then not eating it yourself, not anybody else eating it, just throwing it away. The real magic and the real way to blast far and beyond what memory improvement apps can do for you and use these exercises to do what you want with your brain is to make and use memory palaces, because they're so good for encoding and decoding the information that you want to memorize and getting the information into long-term memory so you can remember that information anytime you want. And what kinds of information? Well, anything. Vocabulary from any language, including your mother tongue. Professional terminology from any field. Poetry, jokes, quotes, long speeches, strings of numbers or equations, important information, as we've mentioned, from textbooks, names and faces, concepts, oaths, computer commands, streets on a map, facts from history, geography, science, and all disciplines, important points from lectures, things said during conversations, and just so much more, and all with near or total accuracy. And I suggest that you just pick a category that interests you the most, get good at that area, then add another. And before you know it, you're going to have the skills that enable you to use a memory palace to learn and remember anything that you want. And the point is that you should use memory improvement exercises that involve memory palaces to remember information that improves your lives. And I think it's more than just your life, but the lives around you, the people in your family, the people in your community, the people that you work with, that you serve in your job or your business. It's really, really important. And this all leads to the number 1 memory improvement exercise that I know of all the memory improvement exercises that we've talked about today. It is the most important, and it is to remember and recall information about the ones that you love. Why do families fall apart? Well, this may be a bit of speculation on my part, but honestly, I think it's true. And a recent experience really drives it home for me. So let me set the scene. As you know, I got married recently, and it was really awesome. And April and I, we went all over the place on our honeymoon, and, I can tell you the name of the judge who married us. I'm going to protect her privacy, but I know it. And that is a huge thing. It's like a subtle thing, but I see stuff like that as a kind of cement that binds 2 people together. And when April and we got our butts here to Beijing for the family party, we still haven't done the Canadian party yet, but we will. I went out of my way to ask for and memorize the name of every single person that I met. Why? Well, because the old cliche is true. And, some people might send me hate mail after saying this, but a happy wife equals a happy life. And what could make a person happier than a spouse who cares, a spouse who can talk about different family members by name, a spouse who can actually look someone in the eye while shaking their hand and say, "Hey, Steve, thanks for coming. We appreciate it." And then do it again and again and again. Now, in my case, there was a Steve at my wedding party, and because he's Chinese, I had to do double duty because he's got a Chinese name as well. And in some cases, I just memorized one of the names. I didn't necessarily say, "Hey, what's your Chinese name?" if they gave me the English one, or I didn't say, "Hey, what's your English name?" if they didn't give me their English one. But the point is that, yes, okay, I'm doing a memory exercise here, but I'm also investing in my wife. And so my challenge to you is that you learn to be a good partner to your loved one as well, and use memory exercise as a way of doing it. And even if you're single, still equip yourself with this skill. As I'm recording, Valentine's Day is just around the corner, but that's not why I'm saying this. But it's true, no matter when you're listening to this. Love equals happiness, and one of the best ways to express love is to actually care about the names of the people in your family and their details of their lives, and as many as you can, as many details as you can. And what about your partner's friends, their childhood pets, and all the other names that we throw around in our day-to-day lives? And again, if you're single, being equipped with these skills, wow, it's going to be hard for you to stay single long, because you're going to blow the pants off all the potential partners because you can show that you care. And, why let all that information pass you by, go in one ear and out the other, when you can capture all of it, pop it into a simple to create set of memory palaces, the system you create for yourself, and you remember it forever. Well, I'll tell you why a lot of people don't do this. I'll tell you the major objection is because a lot of people leave their lives to chance. They prefer to leave their lives to chance. Rather than lifting a finger to make life awesome now and prepare for a great future, they open themselves up for that divorce request that comes out of the blue a few years down the road, except that divorce request really isn't out of the blue, is it? No. It was set into the wall of the life you're building right now, because whether you like it or not, you are building your life right now. Everything you're doing now creates the quality of the future you will have in the future. And so I want you to know what real love is all about. And you want to make sure that memory improvement exercises are a part of your life so that you can really, really add authentic love and strength and certainty to your life. And it really is that simple. So let's review these memory exercises from today. The first one is the Gary Small or 4-detail memory improvement exercise. The next one is to memorize information from books and use the characters in combination with the 4 details exercise. Then create more than one memory palace on a single day, and ideally a memory palace every day if you can. And then use your memory palaces. Use memory palaces every day. Just dodge into one in the morning. It's as simple as that. If you happen to have the ultimate memory improvement secret, then you will have some very powerful tools for making sure that you do that every day and you don't forget. And then the final exercise I shared today is to remember and recall information about the ones that you love, because one of the greatest things that you can do is to use memory techniques to improve your life in tangible and immediate and powerful ways. And so I hope all this gives you some great things to do. I know that it will. I don't need hope. I don't need to ask for hope to be on my side. I know this is going to make a huge difference if you sit down and add these things to your life. And of course, as soon as you do, you're going to make them your own, and you're going to have discoveries that I can't even anticipate. And I look forward to the emails you will send telling me those discoveries. And it's going to be amazing. So have a lot of fun. If you don't have the ultimate memory improvement secret already, magneticmemorymethod.com/secret. Enjoy, and thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Magnetic Memory Method podcast as much as I enjoyed making it. This will most likely be the last episode I record from here in the temporary Magnetic Memory Method headquarters from Beijing. So stay tuned for the next episode of this show. And until we speak again, keep yourself magnetic.